Welcome to We Are Soccer. Today I'm joined by MLS insider and US men's national team insider, Tom Bogert. Welcome to We Are Soccer, Tom.
Cheers. Thanks for having me. I think your background is beating my background. I think it's much stronger than mine. So I respect that. Game recognized game.
I appreciate it, man. Well, listen, one thing you definitely are topping us on is your Twitter followers. I think you have so many followers because you break news. You have the inside scoop. Myself and some of my co-hosts, we've followed you for years. The news you break and the inside perspective you give is phenomenal. So before I let you talk about it, everybody who's watching, please, if you're on Twitter, go follow at Tom Bogert because it's an amazing Twitter account.
That's very kind. I thought people followed me because I was smart and they thought I was handsome, but no, it's probably just the information.
Maybe a little bit of both, but the information definitely helps, man. All right, let's jump in. I really want to talk about the US men's national team. They're back together again here for a couple of days, or about a week to 10 days, because they're playing Grenada and El Salvador. The elephant in the room as they came back together was the Gio Reyna situation. Tim Ream has come out and said, listen, it looks like he's here to prove a point, like work hard and be part of the team. Are you buying into that? Have you heard anything other than what Tim Ream put out there?
Yeah, I mean, look, like Tim Ream is pretty honest when it comes to players talking to the media. So like it was good that he was kind of veteran leader, obviously, on this team and everything else. So he was a good kind of first person to be speaking about it. That being said, if he thought that Gio was being a jerk, I don't think he'd say as much in public like that. I don't know. Like I'd be curious what is happening behind closed doors. But yeah, like I think that it's pretty obvious for everybody wants to move forward. Anthony Hudson spoke about this, that he went to Germany to kind of sit down and talk with Gio. And his kind of messaging was, we want to put all this behind us, everything move forward. Like you said, this is going to be what people are watching for. There's not much that we can learn about a game against Grenada, individual performances, whatever. But like the number one thing that everybody's going to be watching is looking at training photos. Is Gio by himself? Look, is he smiling? Like all this, like we're going to be dissecting the body language to such like a minute degree. And like Gio knows this too. And he knows that this is a camp. This is the first chance that he has to be back in United States shirt and showing everybody, yeah, we're moving on. Again, like he's even said it. I apologize. We moved on. Like, so everybody's going to be watching this. And again, the early signs are good, but this is kind of what I expected in terms of, again, the first quotes. I'm very curious if Gio's going to be made available at any point, how he's going to say. I'm sure that he has answers ready and stuff, because again, like this is the biggest topic around the team and for, his future and his reputation. So again, all eyes are going to be on this. And the best case scenario is if, who cares if he plays well or doesn't play at all? It's going to be the body language more than anything else. He could score a hat trick and people are going to be like, well, he didn't celebrate with his teammates, or, oh, Pulisic didn't run over until the 10th person ran over. So that's going to be what we're all watching.
Yeah, that's actually a great point. We'll have to, and everybody, including all of us, will keep our eyes on that, right? Something that popped up last week, kind of strange timing, was the Christian Pulisic interview on ESPN. It was 40 minutes long. He delved into some things, said, I'm not here to pick the next coach, but he didn't say anything negative about Greg Berhalter. And he was almost, I don't want to say campaigning for Greg Berhalter to come back, but it kind of sounded that way. And We Are Soccer here has talked to a U.S. men's national team player off the record who said, Greg Berhalter is a great manager. We all bought into what he was selling for the World Cup. We all appreciate him. And he kind of wanted him back without saying so much. What are you hearing? And what are your thoughts on Berhalter coming back?
Yeah, so I think that point is a good one. The public perception, I guess, in some circles, maybe not all circles, is pretty vastly different than, say, the locker room perception, or even like reading stuff from people at the World Cup that were like, oh, wow, like this U.S. team plays pretty well. They defend well. It's like, if you just kind of got bogged down in your own kind of fan bases, again, everybody wants the best for the national team. You'd think that he would did an awful job or whatever, right? And like, look, there are arguments, I guess, both ways for if he could have done better, if he could have done worse. But I think the bigger point is as you say, with that Pulisic interview, with the person you've talked to, with the people I've talked to, the vibe around the locker room is pretty pro Greg. Like, obviously, players who didn't play much probably won't feel exactly the same. Ricardo Pepi has even said it publicly that when Greg told him he didn't make the roster, he just hung up. Like, I'm like, this isn't, nothing is black and white, nothing is 100%, but generally from people I've talked to, both in the team and connected to the team. Yeah, like it's a very positive. They appreciate that they tried to be expansive and they tried to play more. The man management, which is not talked about enough, because we can all see substitution patterns. We can yell about that's because it's easier for us to see. We don't see what goes on every day in training. We don't see what goes on in the locker room. We don't see what goes on in man management. And that's something he's very good at. That's something that Jim Curtin for the Philadelphia Union is absolutely elite at. And that's something that, even Jim talks about this as well, where, that is more important than tactics. He's like, anybody could set up a 4-4-2, whatever, but this is kind of what separates people. So again, it's tough to judge, based on, again, one interview or trying to gather, but like the group isn't like overwhelmingly like, oh, Greg out, can't wait for a new coach. Like, I think Pulisic talked about it as well, that like this shouldn't take that much time. That's a bad sign, because like they have to have a sporting director first, and then they have to hire a head coach. So regardless if it's Greg or not, the longer this drags out is just not good.
It's not a good look for U.S. men's soccer in general, right? With what's happening. But you're not wrong in any of the points you made there. All right, let's jump into MLS. I know your knowledge on MLS is absolutely unbelievable. One of the things, well, first, you know what? Let's kind of combine the two. Are you disappointed more MLS players weren't included in this U.S. men's national team roster, or are you expecting that? There was only one, Miles Robinson. Maybe Walker Zimmerman could have been included, but what are your thoughts on the lack of MLS players in this U.S. men's national team roster?
Yeah, so I try to also not make it that binary as well. People talk about air quote and MLS it's just not. Things aren't that serious, that complicated. They try to pick they don't go, oh my God, we need 8 MLS players or 4 MLS players. I was surprised at first because, like you said, Zimmerman and Acosta have been in just about every camp, and they're valuable squad players. And I think, again, how many MLS players are at the World Cup? But when it was kind of described as, yeah, well, there's the Mexico friendly that's out of a international window. That's most likely going to be MLS players. There was just the January camp, which was mostly MLS players. Anthony Hudson alluded to it a little bit, that he's got to balance minutes and fatigue or whatever, that the program in general, whether he's still the coach for the Gold Cup. Who knows exactly what that squad will be. There'll probably be a heavy MLS influence there. So, the more that context is laid out, the more it's like, all right, like that's fair enough, because Miles Robinson wasn't going to be with the squad if they decided, okay, maybe it's better for him to be here now when he could just be with this group for these games, rather than for that Mexico friendly. It'd be you play for Atlanta on Saturday, you fly to U.S. camp, you play for U.S. on Wednesday, and then you fly back to Atlanta and play Saturday. And they're like, we didn't think that was good for him personally. So the idea was to kind of break it up as pretty much Euro-based, then MLS-based. So yeah, I mean, again, when you lay out all that context, it makes sense.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense now that you've laid it out for us. And if anybody's watching, like that's it. You're absolutely right. You just laid it out perfect. All right, jumping into MLS. What surprised you so far about the season? Is there a player or a team that's really jumped out to you and said, wow, didn't see that coming?
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be St. Louis is that first story. Like it's the best expansion start in league history. It's one of the 5 best starts in league history, taking away the expansion qualifier. Like it's wild. And it's not just the points, which is the most important, obviously, but the underlying performances have been solid. They've done a lot more with the ball than I thought they were going to. Like, they're still high pressing transition at their core, but Klaus, Edward Leuven, like these guys can really play. Tim Parker's looking better than he did at any point in Houston. Like the way that they've started and the cohesion has been extremely impressive. And again, they're not every game is going to be an easy 3-0 win or whatever, right? They're going to hit valleys. They're going to have bad spells, but I think that the floor of this team is a lot higher than I thought it was. And frankly, everybody kind of around the league thought it was.
Absolutely. To start off 4-0 and set an MLS record like that right off the bat's incredible. I don't think anybody predicted that coming.
No.
Is there a player that stood out to you so far? One individual player throughout the league? And again, we're only 4 games in. So it's early start to the season, but is there a player you just went, wow, we've been waiting to see him do this, or it's incredible that this person has stepped up so far early in the season?
I mean, I wish that I could go like a deeper cut and again try to flex a knowledge or analysis, but it'd be disingenuous to say anybody other than Thiago Almada. He's leads the league in goals and 4, leads the league in assists with 4. That's 8 goal contributions to 360 minutes. Atlanta have 3 wins and a draw. One of the he was responsible for a lot of those points. Again, particularly that first game of the season. He scores twice in stoppage time from outside the 18, one in the run of play and one off free kick. Like, he's so special. It's so much fun to watch him. And even, obviously the clips that are going to, draw the most eyes are those free kicks and those long range shots because they're incredible. But I think my favorite part about him is in transition, he makes the right decision so often. And for a 21-year-old player, that's not easy. And just because he's the most expensive player in MLS history at 16 million. Atlanta United tried that 2 times prior with Ezekiel Barker and Pity Martinez, both of which I think had, similar levels of technical ability and talent, and not to take away from Almada, but these players were $15 million for a reason. The amount of times that they made the wrong decision in transition, Ezekiel Barker, a couple of people around the league at Texas just be like, oh, look, he did it again. He's a 3-on-2 and he pulled up from 30 yards to shoot. And it's just or he dribbled sideways. It's just every single time he had a chance to make an attack better, he made it worse. And so it's so refreshing to watch Thiago Almada, and it just reinforces that the talent is special. Everybody can see that. But it's his brain, his IQ, his decision-making that's going to make him from, a lower table Premier League team to a Champions League club in one of the big 5 leagues. And so it's really awesome to see him blossom like this.
You wrote an article on Thiago Almada a couple of days ago on MLSsoccer.com, so everybody go ahead and check that out. Great article, by the way. You did in that article predict that he at some point will become the most expensive transfer in MLS history at 30+ million. And something that I took note of was it will be to one of the big clubs in the world, a Real Madrid. You didn't mention the big clubs, but I'll say a Real Madrid, a Barcelona, a Liverpool, a Chelsea, a Manchester City, or a Man United. Based on what we've seen so far, and again, small sampling this season in MLS, I don't see an issue, right? Because you know what? He looks like he has a brain on him. He looks like he makes the right decisions. Do you think that it'll happen, that kind of transfer will happen soon, or do you think he'll last out the year and then at the end of the year is when that transfer will happen?
I think Atlanta are going to try everything they can to keep him for the season, just because, again, this team is correctly built around him and accentuating everything he does well. I'm not sure if it's going to be possible because I've heard rumbling, Thiago Almada would have been ready to leave in the winter if kind of the right offer came in, right? Like that, some of his agents had been kind of floating some ideas to clubs in Europe. So I think that he'll be ready to go in the summer if an offer comes. And personally, that's when you want to go to Europe, when it's the beginning of their season. You have a full preseason with a new club. You don't have to join a team on the fly. Right. But again, I think Atlanta are going to try. TBD, again, if somebody comes in with 35-40 million, what are you going to do, right? And if Almada says, please take that offer, I'm going to be unhappy. So I'm not sure that he's going to last the season, but selfishly, I hope he does. I like watching him week in and week out. Yeah,
man, that free kick he hit this past weekend,
oh
that
my God.
Roberto Carlos-esque, where it stuck out outside the post, and it's man, he is a player. Another player Atlanta United have is Caleb Wiley. Young player down there. He's really kind of shining in the early part of the season. Very nice young player there, and looking, I'm sure Atlanta are looking to have him grow over the next couple of years and be the next Thiago Almada, right?
Yeah, so Caleb Wiley, the interesting part is that he's playing very well on the wing when he probably projects to a left back in the future. So last year they were playing him at left wing a little bit, and I was like, yeah, I mean, getting minutes is better than nothing. I don't know. I don't know if I see him as a left winger. I don't know if he's, dynamic 1v1, but the way that he understands space has been really good. The way he plays off Almada is really good. The right runs, this is good for him. Obviously it's last year they rejected a transfer offer that was more than what they sold George Bello for. It was, again, a national team player, and he went to a German club. That Bundesliga club that has since been relegated. But that was when he had 10 MLS appearances by the time that bid came in. Wow. A lot of teams in Europe are well aware of him. A lot of teams in Europe like him. He's a really big talent. It's easier to point to him now that the goals and the assists are there, but this is a very big talent. This is somebody, Kevin Paredes had a year of starting for DC United, or mostly starting, and then he went for $7 million to Wolfsburg. That's kind of the trajectory that Caleb Wiley's on.
Wow, so he could be the next one in the next couple of years, young prospect. MLS, because we've had a lot of prospects come out of MLS and then they disappear, but they head to Europe, right? They head to the Bundesliga or the Championship or even the Premiership.
Yeah.
So I mean, overall, the MLS, has just grown tremendously. It's phenomenal to see. We did a video yesterday regarding the 1996 season, the first season, and DC United winning. And we had a lot of comments come back and say, "Wow, can't believe it's been that long, that many years." Who remembers that DC United won the first one, right? Against LA.
They were a dynasty too. Like that first era of DC United. It's like it's sad. Like in Chicago having their good days a long time ago. It's sad. It's sad to see them where they are now.
It is sad to see some of these clubs that have fallen, but the league has grown so much. And obviously this year, now they signed up with Apple. Apple are displaying all the games, right? And I, a couple of weeks ago, watched MLS 360 on Apple, and I was blown away. I was hooked to it for several hours. Just, man, this is awesome. I would just like to sit down and watch one game.
Yeah.
Focus on that, but they did a real good job, and they're only going to get better. So it's a great thing to see. I mean, I don't know if you want to talk about Apple and MLS's partnership, but it's great to see from the perspective of the league growing.
No, it's awesome. I think the only fear I had was, will it be easier for people to stumble into MLS? Like, because you have to go out of your way you have to go to Apple or whatever. But like, it's Apple. A lot of people have Apple TV, and like I've been pleasantly surprised at how prominently they're featuring it. And I don't know if this is just algorithmically because I'm clicking on MLS stuff, so maybe it's coming up for me, and maybe I'm just sounding like a moron right now. But I think more and more, and again, this is no inside information. This is just from reading reports about the NBA and stuff. Like Apple had MLB, one MLB game a week last year. They have MLS. They're reported to be interested in getting NBA rights. Like MLS isn't going to be their only sport. So I think that in a macro view, I'm not as worried about, because basketball fans will get Apple if there's basketball. MLB fans will go to Apple if it has MLB, and it's, oh, what is this over here? This is soccer. So maybe that's how they grow the game. But the quality of the broadcasts are extremely high, both in terms of the picture and the broadcasters all being at every single game and being the best broadcasters around the league. The studio shows, like I've been to the studios, they're beautiful. It's only going to get better. Again, like they were really focused on having the broadcast ready, and the pregame shows, like that was like what we're seeing right now is like the base of what it's going to be. There's going to be so much more shoulder stuff that comes out and so many more things. So again, I sound like a company man right now, but like it's all positive, and I'm all really excited for where it's going to go.
Yeah, from my perspective, I thought it might not work out very well because like you said, a lot of people might not stumble into MLS. But I've been just super impressed with the quality of the studio, quality of the commentators, quality of the games and the video. So I got to be honest, changed my tune really quick after watching it. And then I found MLS 360 and I'm blown away. And no, Apple are not paying us for this. Listen, Tom, I don't want to take up too much more of your time, man. You've got news to break, MLS news to break, US men's national news to break. Again, guys, follow Tom on Twitter at Tom Bogert. Tom, it's been an absolute pleasure. Please, we hope to check back in with you again soon. We'll talk about MLS and the season, how it's going. But man, thank you so much for your time today.
Cheers, Craig. Thanks for having me. Definitely look forward to being back again.